Well, here we are live Tuesday morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Adam. Well, for those of you who know and who don't know, I am Liz Reitzig, Raw Milk Mama on Substack, and I host the Nourishing Liberty podcast. You can find it on Substack and on all the regular podcast channels. And of course, I'm here with Adam Kuznia. And Adam is a writer, awesome writer, by the way. Go check out his Substack if you have not already. Farming Full Time on Substack.
Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
Adam, you're writing just every week. I'm like, I can't wait for that next article to drop because it's such good writing. I mean, and I say that as somebody who is a complete literature snob. So really, really, folks, go check out Adam's articles if you have not already. And also head over to Raw Milk Mama, check out my articles. And Adam, today we have a really cool topic. I might get a little geeky about it. If I do, slow me down or ask some questions. But we're talking about Grassroots versus Astroturf and greenwashing.
Yeah, I had to look up astroturfing. I'm not going to lie. What is astroturfing? I'd never heard the term before, but
Well,
makes
hopefully we
sense.
can enlighten people and
Yeah,
share the antidote to that.
yeah, let's do it.
And Adam, so for those who are new to this discussion, Adam and I both work in agriculture and work on food systems, but we come from different angles. A tiny bit of background on me. I work on local food systems and local food sourcing. I'm a really big advocate of direct farmer to consumer sales. And Adam, what's your 30-second background?
I'm a commercial farmer in northern Minnesota. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm also a seed dealer. We grow seed, sell seed. I don't know, just a farmer obsessed with farming. That's all I talk about, all I think about. You can ask my soon-to-be wife. That's all I talk about. So it's my life.
Well, it's a good life, right? We got to have
Yeah,
people who
it
are
is.
ready and willing to feed other people. So thank you for doing
Yeah.
that. And so our combined conversations share some of the overlap that we believe in and understand, and then some of our differences and reflect on that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to start out with a couple of definitions today. And Adam, we talked about this beforehand, but the main umbrella of the topic we're talking about is propaganda. And I'm using that word. I know that for some people that's a super triggering word. And so I want to define it a little bit. So what is propaganda? And this is the Encyclopedia Britannica definition. It's the dissemination of information, facts, arguments, rumors, half-truths, or lies to influence public opinion. It is often conveyed through mass media. Propaganda is the more or less systematic effort to manipulate other people's beliefs, attitudes, or actions by means of symbols. And I would add to that language as well, very much so.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to read a short little section from the literal book, Propaganda. It was published in 1928 by a writer, and let's call him not a psychiatrist per se, but he had a lot of interest in studying psychology, Edward Bernays. This is the opening paragraph of his book titled Propaganda. I really want this to sink in for everybody listening. Chapter 1, Organizing Chaos. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result in the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society.
Wow.
Black and white. It's right there,
Yeah.
folks, in the book Propaganda. So when I use that word, which I do in my writing, it really means something. And this is what it means. It means this deliberate manipulation of people's minds through the use of language, images, symbols, etc. And we're going to talk about two pieces of propaganda, two techniques or tactics, shall we say, of propaganda. And then, Adam, the antidote to that.
Yeah. Truth.
Truth. True stories directly from the front lines of agriculture. But first of all, Adam, why is this important? Why is it important to you? Why do you write?
Well, I started writing. Well, why do I write? Period. It's to organize my chaotic brain, get the propaganda out of my brain. No, but why do I write about farming? Just because there's so many misconceptions about us, and there's a lot of, I don't know, it feels like, from my end, it feels like farmers, especially commercial farmers, larger farmers, are made out to be these villains who are destroying the planet, spraying pesticides on everything. Like, we just do it for kicks and jollies, I guess. But I don't know that, and it's just, the more I do it, I mean, I've been writing on Substack for almost 2 years, and the Substack publications that I see gaining popularity are the ones that, I don't know if I want to say they're not real farms, but they don't seem like real farms. The barn has a giant lighted exit sign above the door. It's clearly an event center made to look like it's a real farm, and it's just, whether it's to sell product or push an agenda, whatever that agenda is, maybe that's the view of farming that some people would like to see. Maybe our farming isn't the ideal system that some people would want. So it feels like there's all these other, the word fake just comes to mind, just fake stuff out there, and I don't know, it kind of pisses me off, to be honest. So I write about it, and I try to be truthful, and I don't know, that's not very popular, especially on our platform. It gets ignored. So
Adam, I think you just described Astroturf, right?
in a way, yeah.
So Astroturf is essentially, it's a technique used to imitate grassroots movements.
Yeah.
We have this term grassroots movements, but what it actually means is like, and you're a farmer, a lot of grasses propagate underground.
Right.
So they'll shoot out root systems, and you don't know where those are going to pop up.
Right.
And if you're trying to get rid of something like bamboo, it's horrible. Right?
Yeah.
So this is how this is what it means, like a grassroots movement. It's on the ground, it's underground even. So you get this happening over here and this other thing happening over here. It's all connected by ideas or by energy, but those who are trying to eradicate that grassroots movement don't necessarily know where it's going to spring up next.
Yeah, tough to find the source.
But Astroturf, what is Astroturf?
Fake. It looks like grass, but underneath there's nothing. Empty, hollow.
So you know how much I love definitions, Adam. So I'm going to real quick read the definition of Astroturf from our beloved Wikipedia. Which everybody knows is entirely accurate and not part of astroturfing ever.
Right.
So from Wiki, astroturfing is the deceptive practice of hiding the sponsors of an orchestrated message or organization to make it appear as though it originates from and is supported by unsolicited grassroots participants. It is a practice intended to give the statements or organizations credibility by withholding information about the source's financial backers. The implication behind the use of the term is that instead of a true or natural grassroots effort behind the activity in question, there is a fake or artificial appearance of support.
Yeah. Just about what I said.
Yes, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
it's important. And Adam, to bring up maybe an area where we differ. Many years ago, I worked hard on the labeling GMO campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And it was simply a campaign instigated by mothers who wanted to have an awareness of what's going in their food to put a label on products that contain GMO ingredients, genetically modified, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I observed through that effort is that there was a real and genuine and important grassroots effort to say, hey, government, or hey, companies, we want to know what's in our food. Let us know, and then let us have the power to choose. And while we were pouring our hearts and souls into this, there was a real Astroturf campaign that popped up that seemed like other mamas or
Mm-hmm.
even farmers caught in the crosshairs talking about the other side of it. But in fact, that was all sponsored by and propped up by the GMO industry. And when I
Sure.
say that, I'm not talking about the individual farmers. I'm talking about those who are making money off your back too.
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an example, like real life example, what I've seen, what I've lived through with the astroturfing, which is an example of propaganda.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a very thoughtful look.
It is. I had something and then it just disappeared. So, yep, lost it. Sorry.
Hey, you know what? Take your time. Sometimes those seeds that get planted take a minute to grow, right?
They sure do. Yeah. No kidding. But yeah, just the fake aspect of it. Like, why is it that's what gets attention? That's the stuff that gets seen. Yet the people that talk about what things are really like, what's really happening, that stuff just gets buried, and it's really frustrating. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, who sponsors these things? Like in the case of Substack, all these fake farms. Like, who would be behind all that? That's what I can't figure out. Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I'm going to pull an example from actually what we talked about last week, which was the story of Crisco. If you missed
Mm-hmm.
our discussion last week, you can go back and listen to that. But in that story of Crisco, the company behind the product Crisco was Procter and Gamble,
Mm-hmm.
and they hired at the time the leading marketing firm in New York City to create the propaganda. I'm using that term appropriately here, to create that marketing message. And what they did was they spent a lot of time listening. So in all marketing campaigns, marketing strategies, they have to spend time listening. What is it that the customer wants? Their
Mm-hmm.
target customer. What is it that what is I want to get this grammatically correct. How are they using words? What is the language they're using? So that the marketing firm can then use that language back on them.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that to say, who's creating, who's setting up these campaigns, the astroturfing? It is most often the companies with an agenda and with the finances to do it.
Sure.
And in the case of what you're talking about and what we've all seen on Substack, on social media, the influencers,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that that's actually more of an example of greenwashing than astroturfing. I might be wrong there because I don't think it's necessarily one company or one agenda behind all of these idyllic farm scenes. I think that's much more individuals that are portraying things in a way that's a little bit greenwashing, a little bit misleading, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So
Yeah.
here's a comment. Let me read this. Um, Unfortunately, even some people involved in resistance are complaining that it isn't organized and leaders aren't visible enough. Doesn't that belie the whole grassroots movement?
Hmm. Yeah. Isn't that kind of the idea, though? There is no one leader. You're just you're a group, and you're sprouting up everywhere. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, I think it's a really interesting question, too.
Yeah,
You want me to take a stab at it?
yeah. Would you please?
Well, let's see. As an activist and as somebody who knows a huge number of activists, it's very difficult to do both the activism and to put food on the table and
Yeah,
pay the mortgage.
sure.
So that it's part of the formula that's used against us, right? You have a very well funded, well organized company or government entity, and then you have disorganized, often struggling activists who are working really hard to get noticed, get read, get a Substack ag category, right? Like you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not well funded. And so the short answer to that is we've got to fund the on the ground grassroots activists who are telling the truth, doing so transparently. That's the short answer.
Yeah. How do you do that when that's not what they want people to hear? Who's
Yeah.
going to fund that? I mean, yeah, you're right. It takes a lot to do this to keep trying to hammer a message, and you're right. You got to put food on the table. I mean, we got full-time jobs. I mean, you got a crop to put in here any day now. I mean, it gets to be a lot, and it makes it difficult to get that message out, especially without the funding. But then I wonder who would ever fund something like this. Who really wants to know the truth? The truth is uncomfortable. It sucks. Who wants to hear about an industry with one of the highest suicide rates in the country out of any industry? Right up there with veterinarians and all these other all these other jobs. Nobody wants to hear that stuff. Nobody wants to hear what it's like to lay in bed at night thinking about the operating loan you got hanging over your head and the kids you got to put through college and everybody needs this. You're like Gumby. People are pulling on you. You got salesmen coming to the door every 5 minutes trying to extract money from you. I mean, it's a tough life, but who wants to hear about that? Isn't it better just to see a pretty image of a big farm with giant grain bins and the typical Norman Rockwell America where it's just a happy family and everything is easy? I mean, it's not how it is. It never has been. But it feels like that's the image they want to portray or want to make people believe, right?
Yeah, Adam, I know what you're talking about so deeply. And also, I want to ask you, do you think that based on what we've already discussed this morning with the definition, what I read out of the book, and what we've talked about with astroturfing, do you think a component of that is that people don't want to know they've been fooled?
Absolutely, yeah. Because it shatters your whole view of the world. It's hard to stomach that. It's hard to accept that for people. And I don't know. It's easier to believe the everything is happy and this is the way it is narrative, right? I mean, it's more comfortable. It's easier. We all love the easier thing, don't we? Usually.
I think we're all kind of programmed to take the path of least resistance for the
Yeah.
most part. And there's some notable examples throughout history who have inspired us to think differently or act differently. But for the most part, yeah, I'd rather take the path of least resistance, but we don't always have that choice, do we?
Right, right. I mean, yeah, the easy way is the easy way, but I don't know, it's never as rewarding. Um, I don't know. Not sure where to go with that, to be honest.
Well, Adam, when you were talking about the true stories of the farms and what's really going on, the truths that people don't always want to hear or read, what story from your farm, from your life came to mind?
I kind of think about it's probably more greenwashing than astroturfing, but I think a lot about the message that gets pushed on us. I go to a lot of meetings in the winter, and you get a lot of these big corporate egg companies up there talking about how uh, one of them a few months ago was talking about how great globalization is. Globalization, we're feeding the world, we're doing all this stuff, and it's so great. And then on the other side, you got an administration that's pushing the exact opposite of it, protectionism. Like, we don't need this. It's just there's so many messages out there, and behind every one of them is an agenda. It's like, which one do you follow? And even furthermore, how do you even know what the truth is? Like, who's actually telling the truth? What It's like there's somebody pulling the strings behind all these different movements, viewpoints, what have you. I mean, it's just it's really hard to separate the wheat from the chaff, like what's bullshit and what's not. That's what's tricky for me, and that's why it's easier for me to tell it like it is, even though it is uncomfortable. I don't know.
What
It just feels like we've been sold a load of so many different loads of different things. It's like, how do you know? How do you know what's right? What to believe? What to follow? What actions to take? How do you know? I certainly don't. Just figuring it out as I go.
we talked about something a couple weeks back, which was staying curious.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what keeps me going. It's like trying to figure this stuff out. Like,
Yeah. But asking so many questions about those, uh, the things that get fed to us so readily.
yeah, exactly.
There's two historical examples that come to mind I want to ask you about. So, does the name Moreland Borlaug ring a bell?
I think you've mentioned him to me before.
He was an agronomist in or mid 1900s, and he was credited with starting the Green Revolution.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was this idea of feeding the world, right? Growing more food, feeding the world. And how he did it was initially he started essentially, to oversimplify. I know this is not the whole story, but to oversimplify, he started growing varieties of wheat in Mexico where it was not native. It was hard to grow, but he figured it out with some uh, farmers down in Mexico and figured out a way to grow more than the farmers had been growing.
Mm-hmm.
And that sparked the Green Revolution, which, very much led into the Earl Butts era
Mm-hmm.
of get big or get out. But it's this kind of idea that, oh, if you just grow more, that's green. This is greenwashing, right? It's this idea that make it look pretty, make it look
Mm-hmm.
more more organic-y, not in the certified term, but in the natural term. Make it look a certain way and make it prettier and make it look more environmental, even if it's not.
Yeah. And then slap a sustainability sticker on it to boot. Then you get, yeah, that'll get you funding and visibility and, buzzwords. Slap a buzzword on a bag of lettuce and it sells. Put organic on it, or farm fresh eggs, or cage free eggs, or anything like that. Like, it's all symbols, words, basically. Use words against people. Stuff that makes you feel good. And people will buy it, right? It's even the same in like I'm in the a good example is the biological space in agriculture. In about 2020, 2021, a lot of money came rushing into this biological space. Bacteria that fixes nitrogen from the atmosphere. There's a gazillion of these products now. A whole bunch of venture capital money came into the space, blew it up. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these products, and they're all going to change the world, and they've all got a sustainability or regenerative ag sticker on them, and they're all going to change the world organically or with less nutrients or whatever. But so many of those, it's the same thing as greenwashing. Like, it's always hard for me to know where to go because there's so many examples of this, and it's hard to pinpoint it and nail it down. But that's one that comes to mind, is that biological, just that messaging that, it makes you feel good, even if the microbes in the jug aren't even alive. The product might not work. It might be a mycorrhizal fungi that's just actually sand in there, but it sells and it kills credibility, and it makes my job harder because, again, how do you know what to believe? How do you know what's true? What actually works? Like, it's really frustrating, as I've said.
Yes. And can you respond to that by describing, pick one example of what you're talking about, and in the context of, you've shared so many stories about your community, which was once a large farming community, and how your city, town, whatever term, has been decimated essentially. So
Yeah.
think about that. What's the impact of some of this greenwashing on a truly farming community, even if it's not quote unquote perfect farming? Like, we're seeing this impact because of it. What is that?
Oof. I think we're seeing it in like the way people vote. I mean, I think most people in rural areas want to blow up the system because I think so many of us feel like we've been left behind this whole time and forgotten. And part of it is this, not being seen, not like our stories don't really matter because, again, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't fit that idealistic version of America. People want to talk about the small towns with this nostalgia, like they're these great places. And I'm not saying they're not great places, but they've just been hollowed out. And part of it's demographics. People are getting older. There's not a lot of economic incentive to move here. Um, I mean, even farm jobs are hard to come by. Everything's automated, and it's only going to keep going that way. Or even the people that have jobs just operating machinery, there's not going to be a place for them. And I don't want to put a timeline on it, but I think it's coming sooner than we think. I mean, I was at a farm show in Colorado last month where, like, autonomous tractors are here. We got like 50 cameras around the cab. I mean, it's closer than we think. And a lot of people poo-poo it, like, oh, well, what are they going to do if something breaks? It's like, there's going to be an operator here sitting in my chair, just watching screens, watching this thing go. And if something happens, yeah, we might have to go fix it. But I guess the point of all that is, at the end of the day, there's no room for people, and we feel left out. And
Mm.
and you see it in the politics and in the way people vote, and how I think people just, they want the whole system to just, people want to reset, I think, honestly. And I don't, to
Can
go
I
through that
pause you there?
reset.
Can I
Sure.
pause you there for 1 second?
Yeah.
When you said there's no room for people anymore and we feel left out,
Yeah.
I felt like I just got stabbed in the heart.
Well, I'm sorry, but it's true.
No, I mean, because it's true.
Yeah, it is.
And because what does that say about us and where we are and what we're doing to our farmers?
Yeah.
I mean, and hey, folks, this is what makes Adam's writing so powerful, because he will tell you that. He will just cut through all the BS and tell you that it feels like we don't matter and we feel left out.
That's the long and short. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And that's probably why I write and talk about this stuff, is because it feels like we've been ignored for basically my whole life. It's been nothing but decline. Like, that's all I've seen. And I don't know. You feel unheard long enough, eventually you got to say something. And that's just what I feel compelled to do. Even if it's not popular, even if it doesn't get me a lot of speaking engagements or a lot of calls from Successful Farming magazine, but I I don't know. I don't like that filtered. It probably comes from my dad. My dad always tells it like it is, and that's just kind of how I'm wired. But I don't know. I don't like
Good.
to filter. I don't like to filter things. The truth is better, in my opinion, even if it hurts, even if it makes you uncomfortable. It's
Well,
better.
here's a comment I'd like your unfiltered response to. Sarah says, respectfully, I don't think we need to reset. I think we need to reroute. If we completely start over, we will likely create another system full of problems. Rooting into ancient ancestral wisdom is the way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that, and I'm not saying we need a reset. I'm assuming that's what most people want just by, just again, the way we voted and what's happening with trade, global trade. There's a question mark on everything right now. And it feels to me like that's what people want. I don't want a reset. That terrifies the hell out of me because I don't know. If you look through history, the reset periods are the scariest periods. The depressions, the World War IIs, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Go back through history. Like these are not fun times to go through. But I don't know. When you ignore enough people for long enough, that's what happens. Whether we want it or not. Was there more to that? The ancestral wisdom. Yeah, I'm. I really like that, and that's kind of how we operate as farmers on ancestral wisdom. I mean, that's that's what it's all about. This great experiment that we do. We're always learning from the generation before us and trying to do better. But are we? I don't know.
A theme that you and I talk about and keep coming back to is essentially you can't farm concrete. You can't farm parking lots.
Right?
So that question, that comment from Sarah saying rerouting, I think a part of what we're advocating for, if that's the right word, is let's keep farmland land as much as possible instead of letting it turn to concrete and parking lots.
Yeah. Data centers.
What do you think? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Take that wherever it takes you for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, reroute. Yeah, I think as farmers, a lot of us you almost feel a connection to the earth, to the dirt. That's what I feel when I go out and walk a field in the summertime. That's actually what kicked off farming full time. I was walking in a sugar beet field, and I don't know, just let your thoughts go. And I walked out of there. I'm like, why am I not writing about farming? And that's what started it all. But it's that connection, that rerouting to. Oh, I'm going to sound kind of hippie with this, but that's okay. I mean, it really is. There is nothing better than the first freshly tilled field in the spring. Like I have been waiting for this for weeks and weeks and weeks for the first person to go, just so I can drive out there and get a sniff of that fresh dirt. There's nothing that makes me feel more alive than that, or the first cut of wheat in the fall. That first smell of that chaff and that dust. Oh man, that takes me right back to being 4 years old with my dad. Like there's just this. Again, not to sound too hippie, but there's this connection to it that's just magical, and I don't even know how to explain it or how to. I don't know, but it's there. I mean, and that's what makes it so special. And then to see it get shit on and turned into an event center from USDA funds, it's kind of sickening. Like people need to know what's really happening, and when there is, I mean, we have a platform, but there's no way to find us on the platform. It's how do you get these voices out? And then furthermore, how many other farmers are out there that can write and have stories to tell that could help people? I mean, I'm not the only one. There's got to be more, but who's going to take that chance and do it if you know you're just going to be shouting into nothing, into a void the whole time? That's a lot.
It is a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
And, Adam, when you're talking about there's nothing like that first till of the spring, for me, that's, and caveat here, I am not a full-time farmer. I am a small scale permaculture farmer and home gardener, but I work with a huge number of farms and love them, and livestock and veggie, the whole nine yards. And there's one farm, one experience in particular I'm thinking of, but it's that oh my gosh, it's that summer weeding barefoot with the mud squishing up as you're going through the rows weeding. And
Yeah.
that's what it is for me, because you're right. Like, you smell the dirt, you feel the dirt, you're breathing in this, like, here it's this hot, swampy summer air, but you're outside and there's trees nearby so you can take a break. But it's just that whole visceral, sensual experience, because all of your senses are being used there, right? You're getting the
Yeah.
touch, you're getting the feel, the smell, the hopefully you're not eating too much dirt, but it does
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Or the sweat, right? So it's all of these. Samantha says yes. So it's like you get all of these senses and inputs at once
Yeah.
that matter.
And the best part is it shuts your brain off for a minute. It just brings you to the moment to be just there, present, and not thinking about the 800 million things that are going through your mind on a normal day to day. You just get that minute or two of just clarity, and it's kind of sad that only 1 to 2% of us get to really experience that. And you said something else that you said you're not a commercial farmer, but I don't care if you are a commercial farmer or if you have a quarter acre garden. If you're growing food and feeding people with it, you're a farmer in my book. I mean, there's people will argue about this push for the agriculture category on Substack. Some people want gardening, some people want, it's like it's all the same. If you're in the dirt, if you're growing stuff, you're a farmer. That's good enough. What sickens me is the people who aren't really farmers acting like they're farmers with their little event centers and their roadside stands that are made to look like a farm, but it's not, you know?
Yeah. Let's talk about greenwashing a little bit, because I would
Yeah.
call that fitting under the category of greenwashing,
Yeah.
and the impact that has on farmers and on people like you, people like me, talking about the real true stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to find that. It's again, it's all the buzzwords, the terms, the everything that kind of just blinds us to what this is really about. It's in the end, it's probably all just to extract a profit out of somebody. It's like the
Well, let me share a couple of stories with you, and then you can tell me if it sparks any stories.
sure.
Many, many years ago, I was at a farmer's market, and a friend of mine was battling cancer, and she was looking for exclusively grass-fed beef. And there was a farmer at this market who looked me right in the eye and told me point blank, "Oh yeah, it's grass-fed beef, 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef." And my friend with the cancer, she was deliberately sourcing exclusively grass-fed to help her healing process. And he had told her the same thing. Well, come to find out, because if you ask the right open-ended questions, you learn a lot. Come to find out, this farmer bought bought beef in, put him on grass for 2 weeks, and sold him as grass-fed with no knowledge, no
Of where it had been
transparency,
where it
no
had been before.
communication about what was going on in addition
Yeah.
to that. And to me, that's a classic example of greenwashing. It's
Yeah.
not being truthful and transparent for the sake of making a sale.
Hmm.
And there's
Yeah.
another farmer that's actually like a lot in the news right now, and I won't name any names,
Mm.
who sells products as if they're his, and they're not.
Oh yeah.
So there's aggregating. There's actually a huge amount of aggregating in the whole like direct farm to consumer model. There's quite a bit of aggregating. You get somebody with a moderate amount of business, and then they start buying in from neighbors without being transparent with customers. So the one distinction I'll make is transparency. If you're telling your customers this is what we're doing, it's not greenwashing. You're being transparent, you're being honest. But if you're not being transparent, it's using misleading or manipulative marketing to get a sale when you're not being truthful. So those are two of my stories. What does that make you think of, like, when you see some of these other farms that might not be farms?
It just feels like a big gaslight. Like eh, it's like no wonder not nobody, but no wonder most people don't trust the system. It's because of all these things. People will tell you whatever they think you want to hear just to make a buck. Maybe yeah, if you're looking for grass-fed beef, oh yeah, sure, this is grass-fed. Why not? Or cage-free eggs in the store is the one that always comes to mind because you look like Josh, the guy I work with, his sister has a few chickens out here, and I've been getting my eggs for there for a little over a year now, and it ruined store-bought eggs for me forever. But the thing is, you can look. There's probably 10 different brands or kinds of eggs in any grocery store around here, and they're all cage-free, farm fresh, organic, blah 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 blah. Not a single one of those is like the eggs out here. They're pale. They're junk in my opinion, and they cost twice as much. But anyway, it's that stupid label that makes people think they're getting something that they're really not. And you're right. It's manipulation. That's what it is. It's gaslighting. It's aggravating.
Can you
And
add
it's
some more
I
detail to that? What are they not getting if it says cage free?
well, they might not be in a cage, but they're probably still in a giant shed all crammed together and being fed hormones and pumped up just to get fat or produce as many eggs as they can. And it's yeah, okay, they might not be in a cage, but they'd probably be better off in a cage, the way they're actually raised. Yeah, and at the end of it's manipulation to suck profit, to suck money out of people, and that's all it is at the end of the day. And that's pretty sad. It really is. It's even sadder that we fall for it, but how can you not fall for it? Because there's just so how can you sift through just in one thing, just eggs? How can you sift through all that and figure out what's right? And then it's not just eggs, it's somebody trying to suck a dime out of you everywhere you go. And how does the average person, I don't want to say not fall for that, but just how do you know again, it goes back to how do you know what's true and what's not at the end of the day, right?
What's your answer to that question?
I talked so long, I forgot the question. What was the,
How do you know what's true and what's not at the end of the day? What would you tell people who are seeking to find truth, not as in ultimate truth, but as in not lies? What would you say? Like, do these three things if you want to learn more about.
well, number one starts with stay curious or get curious. And again, I honestly don't know. Like, where do you go? There's so many sources of information. How do you really know what's right and what's not? I don't have that answer. I really don't. I'm sorry to let you down, but
I think you do,
I
though.
don't know. Listen to people like me, I guess. Like listen to the people who are on the ground. Is that what you're trying to get out of me?
Or
like
like,
like listen to the people who are actually doing it, actually working it, actually out here living the life.
what about taking it one step further?
Tell your own stories. Yeah. Talk about it. Talk to each other.
And
And
maybe get your
you don't
hands
have to
dirty.
start writing, but yeah, grow your own food and see what it's like, even if it's a small plot in your yard. It's get connected yourself and you feel what I feel with the eggs, like this connection to it, like that's real. I know there's not a bunch of bullshit pumped in these chickens, like it's just it's real. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you an impossible question.
Oh
So
boy.
it's okay if you need to pause for a minute
Yeah.
or grapple with an answer, but why do you think we're so disconnected right now? Why do you think we're in this mess?
Where do I start with that? Well, for one, the device we're talking on right now, we're distracted as shit by there's so many things fighting for our attention everywhere, whether it's our kids or family or checkbook, the bank, the land. And then you got this endless stream of basically whatever you want, whatever debauchery, whatever you're into, you can have it and it's right at your fingertips. And it's hard to look away. So I would point to social media, to phones, to that, but it's deeper than that. I think it's demographics. I think my generation and younger, we feel like we've been sold a bill of goods, go to college and do this and do that. And it's like, well, the generation that's telling us that had low interest rates and the biggest macroeconomic tailwind in human history, the best economy in human history that we'll never see again. And a lot of it was driven by demographics, by a lot of people. And this is just so, where am I going with this, Liz?
Well, let me add something to that. We just had a commenter, LG says, for the first time in history, 50 to 65% of the population lives in cities. Agriculture is no longer taught in schools, so the reality of survival, food, clothing, and shelter has been lost to a very, very large segment of society. I was taught a piece of land, a gun, and a garden will keep you fed no matter how bad the world goes to hell. This advice from a man who had survived World War I, the Great Depression, Spanish flu, and World War II.
Yeah,
Thoughts on that?
that's accurate. Yeah, we don't talk about it. We don't teach it. And how many people do you think, if everything went belly up tomorrow and there was no food to be had, how many people would actually know how to go out and grow their own food? There's a lot of stuff. As a farmer, I'm kind of embarrassed to say that it would be challenging for me to accomplish that. And this is my livelihood. So for the average person on the street who lives in the city, it was what, 50 to 65% of people live in cities now. What happens if they don't have food? It's not like there's probably I don't even know if there would be a primitive instinct to know how to grow food. Like, it's all trial and error. And believe me, it's a lot more error than you would think. It's so easy to get stuff wrong, whether it's on a large scale growing a section of soybeans, or whether it's in your little raised garden bed trying to grow a couple tomato plants. There's so many challenges with it, and I don't think most people even know where to start. That's I don't know. I don't want to say that's scary, but it's kind of sad. And it goes back to that disconnection again. We're disconnected. We don't It's like a lot of it, we live in this fantasy world. Like, everything's on our phone. It's right there. In reality, I don't know. It's easier to distract ourselves from reality than to live it. Does that
Oh,
make sense?
yeah. Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that on some level or another. And you called us out on it because here we are on our phones talking about agriculture and
Yeah.
not currently digging in the dirt or teaching a group of people how to dig in the dirt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, you use the word, it's scary. I would say I don't disagree. And with some nuance, it's sobering
Sobering. Yeah. That's a good word
because
for it.
we can decide to literally and figuratively dig in and change it. We
Yeah.
can. And what does it take to look at this as a challenge? Look at this as we can take that first step of that 5,000 step or that 5,000-mile journey um, versus, oh my gosh, it's so scary. I can't handle it. I got to get back to Netflix.
Yeah.
Right. Um, when you talk about that, I'm like, yes, let's go, charge. But I know that that's not the typical response. The
Yeah.
typical
It's not.
response is, it's overwhelming. I'm gonna go hide.
Yeah. That's my default response sometimes. Like, this is all too much. I'm gonna distract myself. But yeah. Again, it's easier, you know?
Yeah, but we're not called to do the easier thing right now. And you and I are not doing the easier thing. We're writing about this. We're telling the truth. We're
Yeah,
advocating for a place on Substack here on this platform that we're currently using. We're saying, give us a place to talk about agriculture.
yeah.
Because right
Just
now,
fight.
what's the issue here, Adam? And why change it?
Yeah, just to get the truth out. We're not. It sucks that we got to fight so hard just to be heard. Like, especially when everything I've talked about, everything is right at our fingertips. It should be a lot easier to
What's
to
the
have this.
actual issue, though, that Substack?
I wish I knew. I haven't got a response from them.
No. Like, okay, what's the like? What's the problem you're trying to fix? Substack doesn't what?
Acknowledge us at
In
all. They
what
don't even.
way?
They don't acknowledge we exist. There's no place to find us. I mean, even their search function isn't that great. You search for agriculture, and I think one or two publications come up, and it's only with agriculture in the title of the publication. That's the only way to find us. And what's beautiful about it is this whole push we've been doing, this whole grassroots movement, and I see it now. It started out as just me making some dumb Substack notes, trying to get a laugh out of people and trying to get some attention to it. And that was already 6 months ago. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, I'll wake up in a couple of weeks and I'll see a little agriculture tab and this will be over. And here I am 6 months later. I haven't even got a single response from anybody. But the beautiful thing is, I see all these other people posting about it all day long now. I'll go on and I'll see Tim Connolly or Trave or somebody posting about this, all these little grassroots sprouts coming out and they're pushing for it. So it's basically by Substack denying us the community that we wanted in the first place, we formed the community that we wanted in the first place. So it's kind of a beautiful thing that how this actually works. And I don't know if they're trying to silence us. I don't want to say it's malicious. Maybe they're just overwhelmed and they have a lot to deal with. I don't know. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I try to, but at this point, it's like there's so many people yelling. I mean, what's our petition up to that Trave did? I think it's up to 170 something as of last night.
Wow.
So that's 170 people that want this. They want to be able to find agriculture writers.
Yes.
And they're not all farmers. The majority of them are not farmers that want to learn about it. So how they can be, how they can just ignore this just baffles me. I'm like, what is happening right now? I'm flabbergasted by it.
And Sherry
I
says connection. And yeah, that's what this is about. It's about being able to find the other agriculture writers,
yeah,
and for those interested in understanding food and agriculture to be able to find those of us writing about it.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and what that looks like on the very technical level is, as Substack writers and podcasters, whatever we are, um, we have to self-identify within their pre-selected categories.
Right.
So
So
that means I'm self-identifying as food and drink because
same.
I write about our food systems.
Yeah,
And right, you said you're self-identifying as food and drink also.
I am now. I've moved a
Yeah.
few times. I've
I
been
mean,
philosophy, humor. I don't know where to go. Like
right.
none of them feel like a home. Food and drink certainly does not. I mean, sure, I indirectly grow some bread, I mean, and some ethanol. I
Yeah.
don't I mean, but yeah, food and drink? Come on. It's a simple little piece of code and some software. Like acknowledge us people. Come on, man. Like what more do we have to do? I don't know. Keep shouting, I guess. Keep getting louder is my
Yep.
that's
That's
what
and
I'm gonna
that's what we're
do.
doing. And we're
Yeah.
finding those others. And as Sherry said, we're connecting with them.
Yeah.
And that can amplify all of us and maybe get us that category eventually. But Adam, I mean, I think that speaks to something that's so much bigger than Substack or a category on Substack. It really goes to what Sherry says, which is connection. And
Hmm.
people are starving for that connection. I
Yeah.
don't mean that in a pun kind of way. I really mean that people want You want to be connected to other farmers, to growers, to the people that you're feeding. Those of us who are more consumers than producers, like me, we want more connection to the earth. And I think ultimately, what do you think? That we are all disconnected from this earth that feeds us.
Yeah. And not just to the earth, but to each other. That's if you go back and read the very first piece I published, it was about this. It was about the lack of connection, about how when I was a kid, I would ride with my dad everywhere, and we'd go to one of the grain elevators in town, which is where we deliver our grain in the fall and sell it. And there was always a cup of coffee on. There was 3 elevators in town. You could go up, and there's always a group of people in there talking about something. And then there was the gas stations and the coffee shops. There was just a lot more people around, a lot more connection. We talked to each other, and you knew what was going on that way. And there's hardly any of that anymore. And a big part of it is because of the lack of people. Again, demographics. The average age out here is like 194. So it's just it's tough. And the restaurants don't stay open because, again, not enough people to keep them open. So we just don't have those connection places anymore. So that was part of the reason I wanted to write about it, was to find people interested in it. And lo and behold, here's all these people around the world who are already writing about it, just like I am, and probably seeking the same thing, that connection to each other, to the earth, and more importantly, I think, to one another. And that's what's so amazing about this, is we built this without a category. We're building this without any support, any resources at all. We're just finding each other. True grassroots. I love it.
As you're talking, Adam, I'm really reflecting on our initial topic, which is Astroturf. It's propaganda, right? Astroturf and greenwashing versus the true grassroots. And what I'm realizing, and I'm a little curious how I didn't realize this sooner, but it's just popping in, that the propaganda disseminated, the astroturfing, the greenwashing, does not facilitate true connection.
Right. Yeah.
And it's only when, I mean, this is like, duh, but of course it's just popping right now in my brain. But it's only when we're willing to tell the truth and be vulnerable and say, this is what's really happening on the farm.
Yeah.
Or in my case, I'm nowhere near as much of a grower as I'd love to be.
Yeah.
And that we're bringing our authentic and transparent selves, that connection can actually happen. It can never happen. I won't say never. It's less likely to happen and less likely to be authentic. I mean, part of, like, in the grassroots things that I've participated in over 20 years of activism and advocacy, there are so many profound connections that happen. But as soon as you realize that the AstroTurf thing that's happening over there, like, it's not real. And so you can't have a real connection.
Yeah. I think
With
people
it.
sense that.
Yeah.
Like, you can feel that. It's not genuine. It's not authentic,
Yeah.
And people can tell. Like, I think most people can tell. Some of us are so disconnected that we probably can't, or maybe don't care. But I don't know. I think there's a primal instinct or a natural urge to want that connection,
I think when
and
people
people
know,
are drawn to it.
yeah, when people know a little bit about it, right? Because in the cases, because otherwise, how would AstroTurf work?
Right.
Obviously, it's
Yeah.
working for some people, or the cases that the examples that I explained, where there's some farmers that people are just like those spiral eyes around
Yeah.
because they're buying into the narrative that farmer's selling, even though it's not true.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it doesn't last, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's got no
It
staying
can't
power.
last.
Right.
There's no depth to it. And what you're talking about with all the show farms, right? I've got a fun little story about that, and you can riff on this if you want. I went to Florida a couple months ago to visit a friend, and of course, I'm such a geek that I have to scout out and find a raw milk source wherever I go.
Yeah.
And we were driving along, and we stopped at this farm so I could pick up my week's supply. And it was, I've been on so many farms, so many dairy farms. So I want to say there's a huge diversity in newness and cleanliness and all of that, huge diversity. And this particular farm, it was not the neatest. It was not the most organized farm I've ever seen, which is fine. That's like a thing for farmers, is the tool shed,
Sounds like
right?
our farm.
Yes. And I said something, I'm always like, can I see the cows? And they were out in the field, but, can I see the milking parlor? And he was like, well, no, we're not one of those show farms. And I knew exactly what he's talking about. He's
Yeah.
like, we're in it day in and day out. We're not just here for people to shop and take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think about all those show farms that are there for just the picturesqueness of it, that are not necessarily producing every day or doing the hard work. I mean, some of them are, don't get me wrong. Some of them manage somehow to be picturesque and do all the hard work day in and day out. But it just shows that there is this image, there is this ideology. And if the farms aren't fitting, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but the difference between the show farm and the working farm, and you're commenting on this a lot in this episode. So what do you have to say about that? What more?
You mentioned the cows. I think of the commercial, California, the happy cows. They're just off in this little prairie, this grassy thing. But if you saw the real cattle, how it really is out there, have you seen a feedlot? How nasty they are, and almost, I don't like to throw it inhumane, but it's about as close to inhumane as it gets. I mean, yeah, I like that. We're not a show farm. I don't know what to add to that, but yeah, so much for show. Just so much of this is all for show, and that's the hard part about it. It makes the people that actually feed you invisible. And I don't know, what does that say? What does that say about our system? I don't know. It says that
Or
it needs
striving
some.
for an impossible standard.
Yeah, yeah. All for an Instagram picture, basically. Oh, excuse me. Jimothy the cat wants in.
Farming duties call.
Yeah. He's coming in for his morning nap. Maybe.
Yeah, and Adam, to your point, that going back to what I opened with, the passage from the book Propaganda, that social media feeds into the worst of that.
Yeah, because you only see the nice, shiny show farms, the perfected, I don't know, a nasty feedlot or a dairy barn or even a messy shop. It doesn't look pretty enough for a lot of that, what those types of things are going for. But again, it's not real. It's some curated ring light, something,
Yeah.
and we're just, some of us just want a voice. We don't want a pedestal, we just want a place, a category, a place where people can find us. And I'm not saying I would ever want those voices censored at all. I mean, they have just as much of a right to be here as anybody. But by only showing that side, it's misleading, and it gives people an image of something that's not entirely true. And that's why I think you need to allow all voices a platform.
I'm with you on that. It's not
Yeah.
taking away the other voices. It's saying like
No.
uh kind of an I don't even like this term, but make an even playing field. Like,
Yeah.
give us an ag category so we can at least show what else is happening
Yeah.
while the show
And
farms are showing their multi-million-dollar barns.
yeah, and I'm not against those things either. If your farm has an event center and there's a market for it, or if you do weddings on your farm or whatever it is, I'm not against that. That's great, but just own what you're actually doing, Don't try to play it off like, "Hey, this is farming," It's there is no this is farming. Every one of us is doing it differently
Yeah.
and yeah, we should
So
all be able to show that.
I
Sorry,
would
go ahead.
say transparency and truth are the antidotes to astroturf and greenwashing.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And give us the space to tell that truth. I mean, we're going to keep doing it, right, Adam? You're going to keep
Yeah,
telling the truth. I'm going to keep telling stories from the front lines
yeah,
and find those folks that are sometimes telling the uncomfortable side too.
yeah. Nobody's coming to save us. I mean, that's why we're here talking, right?
Yep.
But we're not going away. I'm
Nope,
not.
we're not. And where do
Yeah.
people find you?
Farming full time, Substack. Almost every week. I think it's been 10 days since I published something, so I'm about due, but there'll be one coming here in a day or two.
Yes, and just a quick promotion of
About,
another ag writer on here, Samantha.
oh
Sam
yeah, yeah,
Samantha Burns. um, and she says, "Me too." And yes, she is telling frontline stories, and
yeah.
recently telling the frontline stories of the her sheep lambing, and it's adorable and it's fascinating,
hmm
and oh my goodness, it's so much work. So go
It
give her
looks like
some
a lot.
love also.
It looks like a lot of work for sure.
Yes, and I'll just
I
say
love.
that personally, one of the things I love to see is women farmers showing themselves out in the field, out working, doing the
Yeah,
hard stuff, and what it really looks like. Because as a woman and as somebody who has seen a lot of that, maybe polished stuff
yeah,
on social media, it's deeply discouraging and disheartening to just see the pretty side of things. I
yeah,
don't want to just see the pretty side of things, and I think that a lot of people feel that way as well, because we want to see what does it really take? What is it really like when you're exhausted at the end of the day and you still have to put dinner on the table or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah. And
Yeah.
furthermore, it shows other people that hey, you're not alone in this. Like other people are going through the same shit you're going through. And I was gonna say that too. I'm happy to see all the comments on here today. Sam, we're like the dwarves from Lord of the Rings and have no home. Yes, exactly. But yeah, no, it's great to see that. Great to see people engaging
Yes.
and
Love
want
it. Thank you, folks.
want this. Yeah, thank you.
Adam, I do think we're kind of at the end of this topic, unless there's something else.
I think so. I should probably go do some work for my Instagram footage.
The irony of that.
Yeah. But
Somebody
yeah, no,
leaves with
this
this Thomas Jefferson quote: "Agriculture is our wisest pursuit because it will, in the end, contribute most to real wealth, good morals, and happiness."
I don't think there's a better way to close than that. Do you?
Well, I think just signing off, and
Yeah.
folks, if you're not subscribed to Farming Full Time, go subscribe. I'm Liz Reitzig, Raw Milk Mama on Substack, and also co-producing as the Nourishing Liberty podcast. So find us, give us a subscribe. Thanks for listening.
Sign the petition,
Sign the
please.
petition. We'll put that in
Yeah,
the links when we both
yeah,
publish.
for sure.
All
Awesome.
right.
This was great.
Thanks, Adam. See you next week. Oh, yeah, folks, we're going to
Yep.
be trying to do this weekly, bringing you
Yeah.
some news from the ground, from the front lines.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm in a
So,
tractor next week.
yes, we're looking forward to it, Adam. You keep
Yeah.
promising. But I
Well,
guess the weather's the predicting factor there,
yeah.
right?
The weather is April in Minnesota is a tricky, tricky thing. So we'll get
Yeah.
there eventually.
Good, good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, until next time.
All right. Take care.
You too.